What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. And again, like I said yesterday, I uploaded the video yesterday, and then a new bit of ESBC stuff dropped. So of course I will be doing uploads every other day, but it's just this happened to be a kind of a middle day for me. And there was another ESBC roundtable. The first one I spoke about. The second one I didn't bother. I didn't really think it was in the nicest way. I didn't really think it was worth talking about because it was like just a few things. But this one was kind of worth talking about, so I thought maybe I'd give my thoughts on it a little bit and just run through some bits, quick breakdown for you guys. And yeah, before we jump into the video, I just want to say people seem to think because I make videos on it that I am always on their side. Trust me, guys, I want the game probably more than you do. I have been covering it since 2020, and trust me, I want to release that as much as the next guy. I think people think because I make these videos like I get like to play it in my off time. I don't. I wish I did. So trust me, guys, I'm right there with you. The only difference is I make the videos, but we still talk about them. I'm still a part of the community. I still want the game as much as you guys. Right now, you know what I'm doing right now? I'm getting the 100% platinum on Red Dead Redemption 2. That's a 300-hour platinum because I have nothing else to do with my fucking day. So that's what I'm doing right now. But anyways, let's get into it. So I'm not going to waste you guys' time too much. Right off the bounce, they talk about early access and dates. They say about bugs that some are game ruining. Others are okay to send into early access with, but of course you don't want to have a bug in early access that say you load it up, crashes the game, you can't play it. You don't want to pay 40 quid and then that you can't load up the game for a week and a half because they're trying to fix that bug. That's not what you want. Of course, as well, they've got to do online testing because online will be in day one. A big part of the early access they mentioned will be balancing to feel like it's true boxing. They've got to constantly balance things, whether it be footwork, punch speed, fighters this, fighters that, you know, stats this, stats that, lighting this, lighting that. There's so much to balance in a game like this, which is very important. They also mentioned that they want to be able to give proper PC specs for early access, so it's not just a guessing game. People know what they need. Of course, there's different context to bugs as in this game as opposed to a first-person shooter that Ash mentions. He says, you know, if fighters aren't acting like themselves, then that's no good. You can't have Canelo and he's in the Philly shell fighting like Floyd Mayweather. Just wouldn't work because that's not how he fights. And boxing is so strict with that and with how these fighters are. They have to fight like them to look like them. That's no good, say, scanning me into the game and giving me... but making me 6'5" and being able to fight like Tyson Fury, it just wouldn't make sense. So that's like, whereas the context of a first-person shooter game could be like, you know, the reload animations are a bit fucked, or this gun's too powerful. Those things can be fixed so much easier, and they're not as big of an issue as a boxing game. I mentioned about public tests. They've done a few public play tests. I did hear a rumour of one at a university in Manchester or something, or in Sheffield. The reason for that is a fresh set of eyes. As Ash mentions, they play the game every day. They work on the game. They can't just go, our game is great. They need that fresh set of eyes. And what I liked as well is they said these playtests have included boxers, casual gamers, hardcore gamers, boxing novices, boxing hardcores, for that variety of feedback, which I honestly think is the best bet. There's no good just constantly having the boxing hardcores. It's good to have casual gamers because they'll look at it as a fun factor and the boxing hardcores will look at it as a boxing factor. And I think those two just work hand in hand, and it's just like a brilliant idea, really. And then they mentioned that there's a few things to sort outside of game development. Example, the Steam page, the ESBC website. Back in the day, they used to have photos of the fighters. Now they don't. It's not as good. Things like that need to be sorted so the game and the community has like an identity, in my opinion anyway. They obviously also mentioned they know that waiting sucks. They want to give us the date as much as we want it. They obviously get questions from boxers, community members, everything like that. When's it coming? When's it coming? And they want to give it to us as far as I can tell. But obviously you've got the issue that they gave it to us twice before and they had to cancel it both times. So while it does suck not knowing, it's no good getting it delayed. We've had that experience before. Recent games, the God of War Ragnarok game, Forspoken, in the past, Cyberpunk, games that dropped too early, UFC 4, not ready. We don't want that. We don't want that with this. And one more thing I want to just touch on really quick is they mentioned the reason they're there at the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's just come to meet boxers, show them the game, you know, kind of showcase themselves a little bit. But now we've got through that kind of, you know, that little bit, let's get into the meat of the video and a couple of things they spoke about, which is community questions and traits. Now, if you guys remember, I spoke about traits when I went to play the game because Ash had actually mentioned it to me, and Concept Reese and the other content creators, in America, they mentioned the trait thing. And we got to hear a little bit about it. For example, being knocked out 3 times in a career mode would give you the negative glass chin trait, which is I think is absolutely fantastic. And they mentioned that again. So I'm just going to go through a little bit of what they said about the traits and you know, kind of what they are, what they do, and why they've added them, and why it's so important. Outside of stats, they feel like this is a deeper level. Stats are great for power, speed, all that stuff, but this goes a level deeper. This personalizes the boxer, make them more lifelike. You can see them on, you'll be able to experience them how they are on TV. For example, Wilder will have a trait, the bomber trait, which is for a big right hand, but also increases the chance of flash knockdowns, which is what you want for someone like Wilder. You want to be able to load that bang, and even if you're losing that fight, that 10th round, let's say, and you cork them right on the temple, they may go down, they may flash knockdown, they may struggle to get up, and that's what that does throughout the whole fight. But then you also have things like passive traits that adds a layer to the authenticity. And so it's, like I said, not just stats to separate the fighters. They said you have active and passive traits. Active ones are situational. So, for example, Arturo Gatti, when he's hurt, he becomes more dangerous. So that is only in the situation that he is hurt. So he's not more dangerous all the time. He's only dangerous in said situation, which I think is brilliant to have situational things like that. Tyson Fury, in my opinion, needs a situational one where when he gets up, he boxes better, because we've seen that. Wilder has knocked him down again and again and again and again, and it just doesn't affect him. He just gets up and he just looks better and better every time. I mentioned there will be some traits in early access as well, so some fighters, maybe not all the ones in early access, because they're not going to have the full roster anyways, but at least, like, for example, probably the Wilder one. If we get Khan, he'll probably have a glass chin one. Carl Froch, they mentioned, would have a granite chin one because he just doesn't go down. So at least we know that in early access we'll get something to separate the fighters besides just stats. But of course, they did mention as well, for example, a couple of other ones they mentioned was later in the fight, that fighters get a second wind. That's a trait as well. I can't think of a fighter that would be to get a good second wind, but I think that's a good one. They also mentioned career mode. Obviously, it's not going to be in day one of early access, which we already knew. And of course, in career mode, you'll get positive and negative ones depending on how your career goes. Example, as I gave you guys earlier, knocked out 3 times in a row, 3 fights in a row, you may get the glass chin trait, which of course is a negative trait that you cannot get rid of. But he does say that it seems you could, I believe it seems like you can choose trait, because he does mention that there's a drop down for them. So I assume the negative are given and the positive are chosen when creating your fighter. I assume there's a few where you build like onto something. If you keep knocking people out, say a lead check hook, for example, you keep dropping people with it, then maybe you'll get a trait for your counter shots, your check hooks become more powerful when a fighter is stepping forward, perhaps. That's just an example, though.
Get excited about it. So now you got to do that pitch for everybody else.
Awesome. Okay, no, listen. So traits. So one of the things that we wanted to do with this game was obviously have every boxer feel like how you see them react or behave on TV. We want to try and replicate that in the game, right? So it's a pretty tall order. Now we built out the whole stat system in the game where fighters have the strength and left hand power, right hand power, and I think the stats that we've shown in 1 or 2 of our videos. But I just wanted to kind of go a level deeper, right? To really feel like this boxer is almost personalized to the level that they've got some traits that they're known for in the ring, right? So
variety in what you see, right? So that you can make choices as a player of, well, do I value this sort of trait over another one? But also when you're playing against, the AI, things that you have to think about when you're fighting that fighter.
A pretty cool trait maker. So we can pretty much create those traits to match fighters. And things that happen in the
that's what you showed me that got me really excited when you had called me that day, because you just showed it to me and I was like, well, can you do this? Can you in this situation? Can you create this situation? And you were like, yeah, there's just a bunch of drop downs. So I think that's the thing. Once we get into early access, I'll be interested in probably the community will tell us like, hey, there should be a trait for this person.
They also mentioned there'll be icons associated with traits to learn fighters quickly instead of having to have a deep look into the stats if you can't be asked. So there'll be, let's say, like, a fist with an explosion would be like the bomber trait, for example, where you have that powerful right hand. You can go through, you may find a few fighters you don't know, and you're like, oh, this guy's got granite chin, heavy hand or bomber trait, but then he's also got, low stamina after 6 rounds. Like, the icons will carry through each fighters, and so people can pick fighters on quick decisions. You don't have to be that dieharder that square, right? Let me look at all the stats, scroll down, next page, scroll down. You don't have to be that guy. You can just quickly look and be like, oh, he's got a good few traits. Let me see how he feels, and if you like him, then you maybe will have a look deeper into his stats. And then just something I want to mention is Rack or Will Kinsler says he says a bit of a hot take, but he believes that stats are overrated. You have a 95 overall against 85. 95 is probably going to win. However, traits seem to be extremely important for the fighters and choosing who to fight with. You've got someone like Tyson Fury. Maybe he has like a jab happy trait where he can just jab for 12 rounds. How are you going to beat that? There's no point in going against using someone who also has a counter punch trait, because you're not going to be able to counter Tyson Fury with his long arms and he's snapping off that jab. Maybe you'll need that wild or that bomber trait to get in and throw that massive shot. But that's just an example off the top of my head. And then the community questions, I'll just quickly rattle off without putting any of the round table in for you guys just to get it over and done with. They said, will there be visible difference in the hands? Short answer is yes, because at the minute we have seen the gameplay, everyone looks like they're punching at the same speed. Weights will of course matter. A bantamweight will punch quicker than a heavyweight, which is good. We want that. We don't want everyone throwing at the same speed. The next question was, will we see different weighted fighters? So yes, we will have different versions. For example, Canelo at welter and Canelo at middleweight, even in early access. They also asked if there's like a visible difference. There will be younger and older fighters and versions of fighters. For example, prime versions versus comeback versions. But that is a select few. They're not going to do that for everyone. So an example for me would probably be, who's in the game that would be a good example? Ricky Hatton, a young Ricky Hatton, a comeback version Ricky Hatton. Or maybe if they get George Foreman, they could do prime George Foreman and comeback George Foreman, who ended up winning the title at a really old age. They then are, the next question was, will refs correct you or end the fight for excessive taunting? They said that won't happen, but you can have a fight stopped for excessive fouling. They said, to be honest, the taunting thing, the punishment would be that you'll probably get knocked out if you taunt too much, which I don't really think is an issue. Mentioned motion blur. They said there is motion blur. There's a lot that goes into it, crowd and things like that. I'll probably turn all that blur shit off, to be honest. I'm not a fan anyways. Will we get female fighters day one? Yes, we will. They haven't shown any female fighters fighting yet, but hopefully we will see that soon. And they said that a bunch of them will ship on day one for free, which is good. Will the ref take a fight? Will the ref stop the fight? Sorry, if you keep taking a knee. There is of course a 3 knockdown rule, so they will do that. If you get knocked down twice and you take a knee once, that's 3 knockdowns. If you take a knee twice and get knocked down once, that's 3 knockdowns, regardless how you want to look at it. They also said there's a point deduction system if you hit someone as they're on the way down. So if you've got someone up against the ropes and you're hammering them and they press whatever button it is to take a knee, and as they take the knee, you crack them with an uppercut, you may get a point deducted for that. So you've got to be careful when you're hammering someone in the corner. You've got to be careful if you see them start to go down. You don't want to hit them on the way down just in case they recover between the rounds. Will there be different levels of crowd noise in terms of size? Yes, smaller venues will be quieter, bigger venues will be louder, of course. Early access will have different crowd sounds reacting to the fights, cheering, booing, whatever it may be. Then he mentioned in early fights in your career, if you're on a big card, there'll be low attendance because obviously you won't have the big popularity, which makes sense. I like that. Popularity will make a difference in career, which is good. They asked about super weight classes, so middleweight, super middle. In early access, just going to be combined. I think that makes sense. If there's only 30 fighters, you don't want to have them spread out across 16 weight classes. It makes sense just to push them together, at least for early access. It will be like that through online and offline. But in the full game, as they add fighters and add fighters and add fighters, they will stretch it out to super classes. But as of right now, I think that makes sense for early access. And then this one's really exciting. Will you do a public beta test before early access? And they said yes. They will be doing a beta before early access for online testing, which is very exciting. But they said it might not be as fun as we think because it's just going to be buggy. It's going to be a tech test just to break the servers and just get them to get that volume up, which I'm fine with. No real issue with it. At least we can maybe get a little bit hands-on with it, but we'll have to see. And then they asked, has the clinch improved? And they said that while they did want a more involved clinch system and they will add one in the future, they've had to push it back because they noticed that the more advanced clinch system they added, the quality of the gameplay was going down. So because they've set such a high bar for themselves, they've lowered the clinch system in the terms that it's improved for how the clinching works and looks visibly. It looks nice and works well, but as of right now, it's simple. There is no fighting on the inside in the clinch. You still have the inside fighting, but you don't have like roughing up in the clinch, which I think makes sense. If that was costing maybe gameplay that they're not quite, because they're not yet there yet. In the future, they may add a more involved clinch game, and maybe after full release, but who knows? They do say they'll expand it once the game is out. But that is pretty much it, guys. I just thought I'd give a quick breakdown because the video was about 40 minutes long and I know not everyone wants to watch it, so I thought we'd have a little chat quick. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Of course, people were saying, there's no date, this is pointless. At the end of the day, you can tell a lot of people haven't had to wait for games in the past. I've had to wait for many a game and I'm okay with it. Of course I want it, but I'm not someone that gets hit. It blows my mind that people get angry that they have to wait for a game. it's like, you know, did your parents not teach you to wait? I don't get it. I don't get how you can be angry over it. At the end of the day, this is gaming. You have to wait for shit sometimes. It's the way it shakes out. I'm okay with it. I want the game, of course. I want the game in so much. You guys probably don't even understand how much I want the game. But if waiting is what it takes, then so be it. No one wants a shit game. No one wants a half-assed piece of shit, because all we do is trash UFC 4 because it was half done. And then people want to rush ESBC. Doesn't make sense. People are pretty stupid sometimes. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Of course, hopefully we'll see some gameplay. We're not going to get the game just yet. Hopefully we'll see some gameplay over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, and as always, guys, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and I'll keep you guys updated at every turn that I can. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.